it opened my eyes to all the things I should be thinking about. Then after we had that presentation, I realized our school didn't really touch on much of that.
Your entire match outcome can be dictated by which programs you select and signal.
So I ended up getting 6 interviews for neurology and then 24 interviews for IM.
The best feeling is the day that it opens, you get that instant gratification. I am actually qualified to be here. I did a great job. I put this stuff together properly and people want me. And then obviously, in the scenario, the floodgates open, and it sounds like for you it did. All right, so we're here with an amazing MS4 student, Shounak. He's going to tell us a little bit more about his current match process, and how it went for him, and what it was working with MatchPal. So yeah, Shounak, why don't you tell us a little bit more about where you were at in the process when you first discovered MatchPal, and what kind of questions were you thinking about at that point in time?
Yeah, so I first discovered MatchPal. I went to the first kind of webinar for VSLO and really opened my eyes to all the things I should be thinking about at that point, and quickly realized that my school didn't tell me about the majority of that. So was kind of curious about what the next steps are, what I should be looking for in VSLO, how many applications I should be sending out just to be successful in match.
Was the webinar that tipping point, I guess, of, well, there's a lot to this process that I'm not really being taught or told about? Was that the tipping point, or did you wait until maybe a different time during MS?
I think I was waiting till our school did like a formal presentation on VSO and giving us some information about 4th year before I really had that tipping point. But it opened my eyes to all the things I should be thinking about. And then after we had that presentation, I realized our school didn't really touch on much of that. So I really needed help trying to navigate that. So that was the tipping point.
Nice. Okay. And so, you reached out, you signed up, and what was that process from the time you reached out to the time that you had a first session with your advisor? If you could tell us a little bit more about what that looked like.
Yeah, it was very fast. So I think I messaged, and you had called me maybe like 5-10 minutes after that and just kind of walked me through what advising kind of entails. And I was pretty much sold from the get-go. So then you reached out, found a specialty specific advisor, and I think she and I started emailing maybe a day or two after. So it was very quick.
I love that. Yeah, we try to get everyone on board as soon as possible. What did you guys cover during that first session? We always like to do like a kind of initial kind of strategy call with everyone just to get a sense of where you guys are at. But like, what did you walk away from that first session with?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I took away was really that VSLO strategy. How many places I should be applying to, what I need to be prioritizing just to be successful in the match down the way, like research experiences and volunteering and that sort of stuff. I think those are the big things. We also kind of talked about how we should be using the sessions that I had in that advising package and what kind of steps she would be helping me with as I went through that.
Nice. Okay. And then as you went along, what were some of the other things that you were working on with your neuro advisor?
Yeah, I think the big thing was from the beginning, like, okay, your research is a little deficit. How can we increase that before ERAS comes out and we need to submit that? And she had a lot of good strategies on little projects that were pretty short with turnaround times that you could put on the ERAS application and pad yourself a little bit. I think the other thing was also being very strategic about picking programs, just when you're looking at not only VSO, but match down finding places that had a good number of DOs and had taken them historically. So kind of changing the way I was thinking and looking at programs was a big thing.
Yeah, I think that's super underrated. Your entire match outcome can be dictated by which programs you select and signal, and what kind of connections you potentially make with them. Even just selecting them and signaling them properly, which really looks differently for every single student, depending on how competitive you are, what school you come from, what your CV looks like, is just super valuable. And yeah, it's one of the areas that we are seeing growing only more in importance as we kind of go down the signal token ERAS world that is relatively new. So you pick your program, you did some extra work, you got your CV kind of a little bit tighter, more competitive. So what about personal statement?
Yeah, I think in the beginning I had a lot of writer's block, just couldn't really put anything on paper. Once I got something started, then I was able to work with my advisor to polish it up. She gave me ideas on things I should highlight from my CV, things that I should maybe not include, and really was able to give me a good narration on how to tie the whole thing together. And I think once that all started going through, we were able to do little revisions here and there over a couple months. I think came out with a really nice final product.
That's amazing. Hopefully you got some good feedback on it during interviews.
Oh yeah, a lot of good feedback.
Awesome. And so, okay, so then you applied You feeling good, great? Where were you at when you hit submit on ERAS? How did you feel confidence-wise?
Confidence-wise, I think I was pretty high on confidence. I waited until very close to the deadline, so I think that was stressing me out. But good with the programs that I found, the way I was going to signal. We talked about that strategy, and I felt really good about that. So I was just very hopeful going into it, and I think it paid off. Yeah, I think the first day that interviews were being sent out, I got my first interview, so I was pretty happy about that.
The best feeling is like the day that it opens, you get that instant gratification. I am actually qualified to be here. I did a great job. I put the stuff together properly, and people want me. And then obviously in the scenario, the floodgates open, and it sounds like for you it did.
Oh yeah. So I ended up getting 6 interviews for neurology and then 24 interviews for IM because I ended up dual applying. So it was awesome.
That's amazing. 6 for neuros is really strong. 24 for IM is just absolutely fantastic. So we're really, really excited to see where you end up, and give us a sense of, if you had to map it out to the distribution of your interviews for reach, top choice programs you really wanted to go to, a middle of the road place that you kind of be happy at, but maybe weren't the top choice, and then safety programs that you weren't super excited about. What was that distribution of the interviews that you got?
Yeah, so I think it was a little bit top heavy. I got the majority of the schools I was trying to reach for in my top choices. I got those interviews, and then a couple padded, maybe in my middle area is kind of the remainder of them. I don't think I had too many safeties.
That's great. That's amazing. So super exciting. So I guess if you had to kind of go back and talk to your MS self and give one piece of advice about this whole process, whether it's related to MatchPal or not, just about the whole ERAS process, what would that be?
Start early, because I think there's a lot of things you can adjust. And if you know kind of what's going to come at you down the road, you can adjust early on, and that sets you up for success.
And what would you say is like the single biggest value add of having a specialty matched advisor? What was the single biggest lift that gave you for your whole process?
I think the ERAS application was probably the most helpful, because the way I would have filled it out would have been completely different than how my advisor advised me to. And I think I would have looked very bare bones going into that. And the way that she was able to tell me to write things or put things down in certain categories, it made my application much more complete.
I think positioning is half of the battle. Obviously, it's very hard to position someone who has nothing, but most students don't have nothing, right? Most people come into this process, they work hard, they have some areas that they're passionate about, they've contributed to some sort of leadership or research or whatever that area is that they had the time to carve out for. And how you write it and how you present it, and then also how you talk about it on interviews, is the entirety of selling yourself to programs, right? And so if you can do that really poorly, despite having done some pretty cool things, or you can have done an average amount of things and presented it excellently, and now you're dealing with two completely different interview yields, match outcomes, etc. So yeah, we're so excited to see where you end up and to be a part of your process, and just thank you for your time. Thanks, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you all for everything.